What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sector for Nerds. I'm Ryan Brower. Today we're here to talk about Tales of the Jedi. We're going to get right into it, you guys, because first off, I want to give a proper shout out to Dave Filoni, but to also say thank you, so much for this. I have been waiting so long for good Star Wars content like this, you guys. And listen, for those who like Andor, I respect your guys' opinions. I'm happy that you guys are able to find enjoyment in that show. Personally, I have not. But this right here, this is the Star Wars content that I love. This is the Star Wars content that I want more of. And it's what I've spent the last few minutes after watching this getting super emotional about because of how much this type of content means to me. I want more of this type of content with the Clone Wars style animation, with Dave Filoni running it, because he shares that passion for Star Wars that a lot of us have. And listen, I'm not going to make this about, oh, this series sucks, or this isn't all it lived up to be when it comes to Andor or other Star Wars series that they've done as of late. But I just cannot say enough good things about the content that we got here today with Tales of the Jedi, and I cannot wait to talk with you guys about it. We're going to kind of break down my thoughts on each episode. I think what I'll probably do, though, is maybe spend a little more time on the episodes that I really enjoyed, and then some of the other ones we'll just kind of touch on briefly. But man, I love this. So when I first got onto Disney Plus, I looked at the episodes and which episodes were going to take place where, right? And I thought they're going to do the Dooku episodes first and the Ahsoka episodes. But the way they had it structured is they had one Ahsoka episode first, then they had the 3 Dooku episodes, and then the other two Ahsoka episodes. My guess is they did this so it would stick in a chronological order in which the events took place. But yeah, you guys, let's start talking about the episodes. So episode 1 was basically the origin story for Ahsoka. It opens up on a village. We get to see baby Ahsoka. The music at the start of this episode too, and honestly throughout the entirety of this first episode, was really good. I love the line that Ahsoka's mom says, you must face death, do not fear it. That's such a crazy line, but I love it. And I loved how Ahsoka could sense that tiger-looking creature was coming. And then we get to see Ahsoka use the Force for the first time, and then she's riding the tiger back to the village. And you have the village elder saying, Ahsoka is Jedi. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the end credits are playing and they play Ahsoka's theme, and I was like, oh, I wrote my notes, emotions running high for me, couple tears fell down my face, and I'm just sitting there thank you so much for that, Dave. It's the origin story for my favorite character. Something I wasn't sure we were ever going to get, but the fact that we did, I love it. Something I thought they were gonna do in this show that they never did was Plo Koon bringing Ahsoka to the temple. That is something I would have liked to have seen, but if they ever wanted to do a season 2 of Tales of the Jedi and this be the next part of that backstory with the village, I'd be down for that. So then there's the second episode, and we get Dooku and Qui-Gon, which I was like, oh my gosh, we're really getting Dooku and Qui-Gon content right now. With young Dooku as a Jedi still, even younger Qui-Gon, this is crazy. I love the line that Dooku said in this episode when he says, I serve the people, not the Senate, which is very telling of what the Jedi kind of become during the Clone Wars. There was sort of that separation between the Council and the Senate, but I feel once Palpatine kind of took power and the war started, it felt like the Jedi got to a point where they were just adhering to the Senate and serving them, which is not what the Jedi should be doing. I wrote in my notes, villagers are getting their butts kicked. Dooku's about to use the dark side, ain't he? And then a couple seconds later, yep. Thankfully, Qui-Gon got his son, Qui-Gon got the senator's son, the one who was attacking the villagers, to go out and be to save the father and stuff, but also to be hey, what have you done? And then seeing Dooku and Qui-Gon bond at the end of the episode, and him saying the same line to Qui-Gon that Qui-Gon says to Obi-Wan, where he says, you're a much wiser man than I am. I just find it very interesting, right? That wisdom just keeps getting passed down, and the master seeing more potential in the apprentice than they see in themselves. So then there's episode 3, the episode with Dooku and Windu. This was probably my least favorite episode of the bunch, but not to say that I didn't like it. I actually kind of appreciated the fact that Windu wasn't on the council yet, and then by the end of this episode, it's announced that he's on the council. Like, that's cool. We get Dooku with the full-grown beard. Him and Windu are on, what was it, Raxus? Both of them are masters, but not on the council. Quite the opposite of what happened to Anakin. When the senator was explaining the situation, I wrote in my notes, oh no, were they the ones that killed her? I've got a bad feeling about this. Windu knew something was up too. And then they fall into the trap. I love the moment where like Windu has to jump out of the way to sort of dodge bullets and then go and take out some of the other ones. But like Dooku's just sitting there taking them like head on and stuff. Like it was really cool. But I feel like interestingly enough, what this episode kind of did was plant the seeds for what happens in the next episode. Because the one dude kind of says like, you know, the Jedi have kind of lost their way. They keep the peace for the wealthy and the rich, but then when it comes to like the poor people, you know, it doesn't matter as much. And Dooku kind of takes that like to heart. And then I almost kind of feel like it sort of takes him back to that second episode where it's like, how do they let the senator do this to the villagers? And I thought Windu's response was so ironic to not only what the Order becomes, but sort of what he becomes. Cause, I mean, let's be honest, Windu is a bit of a butthole. During the funeral, we get several different Jedi there. Like I saw Ki-Adi-Mundi, I saw Saesee Tiin, there was Plo Koon, I believe. And then again, Windu's on the council and Dooku like being a little bit mad about it. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, we're planting those seeds for that dark side turn. And then we get episode 4, which was definitely my favorite of the Dooku episodes. I think overall it was probably my second favorite episode or my third favorite episode. Yeah, but this was so good. No, who am I kidding? It's my second favorite episode. This was really good. So like this episode starts off with Dooku deleting Kamino from the archives. And then I realized we're in the Phantom Menace timeline because Yaddle talks about Qui-Gon's encounter with a Sith Lord on Tatooine. And I'm like, oh shoot, we're right in the middle of episode 1 right now. Like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon just got done with the council. Now Qui-Gon's off walking about and he's sitting there talking with Dooku. And they talk a little bit about Obi-Wan and it's like, oh my gosh. And Dooku's like, you're always talking about him, which plays into episode 2 when Dooku's like, Qui-Gon always spoke very highly of you. Oh, I love this. Liam Neeson is back to voice Qui-Gon, so that was a plus. And then we kind of fast forward to after Qui-Gon's death, and Dooku's standing there by that tree, that same tree that we see in the Clone Wars Lost Missions. Apparently Qui-Gon was born on Coruscant as well, at least that's what Dooku made it sound like. Then we get to probably like the best part of this episode, and that's Dooku going to that place that we see him in at the end of Attack of the Clones. We also see him go there in the Lost Missions of Clone Wars, and Yaddle follows him. And I'm like, oh no, Yaddle's gonna die, isn't she? Because if she sees him there with Sidious, Yaddle can't go back and report that. And of course, we get Darth Sidious, voiced by Ian McDiarmid, which is very cool. And then it kind of dawned on me as well that Dooku was already apprenticed to Sidious even when Maul was alive. And I just love that whole conversation with Dooku and Sidious where it's like, why did Qui-Gon have to die? It's like he could have been a powerful asset. And, you know, Sidious is like, he could have been a powerful asset to you. So I think that does kind of play into the theories of like, Sidious really wanted Qui-Gon dead because in the end, Sidious was playing the long game, right? And the long game was at that point for Anakin to be his apprentice, and Qui-Gon being in Anakin's life would very much prevent that from happening. The moment I saw Yaddle step out, I'm like, oh no, Yaddle's about to die, no. Yaddle, by the way, voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard, so shout out to her. She's been in a lot of different movies. She also helped direct several of the Mandalorian episodes. Yaddle tries to convince Dooku, like, hey, there's still time to change. And then after kind of realizing that Yaddle heard everything, Dooku's like, now you have to die, essentially. They have a really good saber battle, and it sort of ends with, like, a moment where you think Yaddle is dead, but they completely turned it around, and, like, I did not see it coming. Like, I thought, oh, there we go. Dooku forced the door down on her, and now it's over for her. And then, there's Dooku and Sidious are kind of sitting there like laughing it up. Sidious is like, rise, my apprentice, everything. Like, you have done well. And then all of a sudden the door lifts and I'm like, oh shit, this is so sick. But all it really was like a last ditch effort for her to try and fight back. But like once she got out of the door, like she just kind of rolled over and fell down. I'm like, maybe if you would have rolled the other way, maybe you would have had a better chance of surviving, because then Dooku just ends up killing her anyway. And I'm like, well, now she's dead. The episode ends with Palpatine smiling, but like, holy crap, you guys. So now we kind of have an answer of what happened to Yaddle in Star Wars. I'm pretty sure she has a Legends death and stuff, but now this is like her canon death. I love that we got to see Dooku's dissension to the dark side, and I feel like that's what these 3 episodes were really meant to do. It's like, okay, so we start out with Dooku here, and like over the first 2 episodes, you sort of like plant the seeds of the dark side, and then by episode 3, he just goes full dark side. I do kind of find it funny, though, that Sidious is sitting there talking about, like, oh, the Senate is corrupted and stuff, and that's why you need to leave the Jedi and blah, 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 blah. But the whole irony of it is part of the reason why the Senate is so corrupt is because of Palpatine. Unfortunately, Dooku was just kind of too blind to see it. The scary thing was that Dooku was serving Sidious even while he was still technically a Jedi. Like, Dooku was in the Order doing stuff, right? Though I think they did say that he was going to be taking a leave, right? Or isn't that what they were saying, like a leave of absence, or this was the moment where he was going to leave the Jedi Order? Yaddle trying to bring him back and be like, I stepped off the council because I saw some of the things that you saw. But like, Dooku was taking things to the much extreme, teaming up with a Sith Lord. Alright, you guys, let's move on to episode 5. This was the shortest episode, but definitely served its purpose. And that was, hey, remember in season 7 how Ahsoka survived Order 66? This is how she did it. When they first opened and they showed like a wide shot of the whole room, I looked to the left corner and I'm like, is that Kanan and Deppa? And then they get another one later, just like a close-up of the 2 of them together. I'm like, oh my gosh. I would have loved to have had like a Kanan and Ahsoka interaction during the time of the Clone Wars, because that was always something in Rebels that I did wonder if Kanan and Ahsoka knew each other. Even if they never spoke, Kanan can at least say he knows of her. Anakin was not impressed with the test that the council was giving her, and he's like, if you want a real test, then this is how we're gonna do it. And the test is basically, you're surrounded by clones, survive. And she keeps failing, and Anakin keeps pushing her. And I'm like, this is very brutal training, but it's brutal training that is gonna help her survive Order 66 when so many others died. Because like, to Anakin's point, right? Like, if you can survive against Rex and his boys, you can pretty much survive against anybody. And then we kind of fast forward a little bit to her training again when she's got 2 lightsabers. And I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my gosh, like, was she still going through this training? Rex said she held him for 5 minutes. And I'm like, whoa. And then Ahsoka going, I can do better. And that just like fully explains everything then in season 7, because she didn't need 5 minutes to survive. I mean, she needed maybe a good like 15, 20 seconds to figure out how to get out of that situation. But like, if the fact that she could hold them for 5 minutes, like, that's insane. And then we fast forward to season 7 and like them being on the Republic cruiser and them right about to go and confront Jesse and his men, and Rex being like, let's hope all that training paid off. Nice way to put a bow at the end of that episode there. And then we get my favorite episode of the 6, that being the finale, which was pretty much the Ahsoka novel, with some changes here and there as to be expected, but basically the Ahsoka novel summed up in an 18-minute episode, and I loved it. We start out with Padme's funeral. We see Bail, we see Mon Mothma, and we see Ahsoka. And as Ahsoka is leaving, Bail confronts her. And he's like, you're risking a lot being here right now. Why are you here? And Ahsoka, like, she takes off her hood and she just kind of says sadly, like, she was my friend. I think they're more than that. I think they're also kind of like sisters as well, or at least sister-in-law, if you will. But I will say, like, credit to Bale, right? Because Bale was a man who, like, knew at this point, okay, there is so much changing in the galaxy right now. I need to keep certain things on low profile. I'm kind of thinking about it right now as well, but Bail Organa at this time is very much like a Nick Fury type character. Like, he's kind of the one that has a lot of the secrets, but he kind of chooses, like, which secrets go out to what people and what secrets stay to himself. And as I guess as Iron Man says in Avengers, right, his secrets have secrets. So I feel like there's so many layers to Bail Organa where it's like he's got to keep so much on the low profile because there's so much, you know, going on with the galaxy now, the Republic becoming the Empire, crazy stuff. Bale tries to recruit Ahsoka for his cause, and Ahsoka's just like, I'm tired of fighting. The clones go up and confront Bale. Luckily, Ahsoka got out of there in time. But, like, as he's talking with the clones, he's like, hey, just so you know, guys, if you ever need me, you know where to find me. And, like, you know, kind of giving that message to Ahsoka as well, being like, you know what to do. And then we get Rex in this episode as well. He was there, that Y-Wing was there. Man, the only thing I wish I would have seen at this point, and maybe we can get into this, whether it's in Bad Batch Season 2 or a Season 2 of Tales of the Jedi, but like, what happened when these two separated? Because we still don't know the answer. So basically right now, what I'm getting the idea of, right, they buried the clones, right? That was the last thing we saw Ahsoka and Rex doing. So then word must have gotten out about Padme's death and like that there was a funeral that was going to be held. Ahsoka was probably like, all right, I want to go to this. Rex was probably like, that's a bad idea, so we're going to get ourselves caught, attempted Rex impression right there. But Ahsoka's like, no, she's my friend. I need to do this. Because we go from the moment of Rex and the Y-Wing, right? And we get away from that. And then we open up on this farm and I'm like, oh my gosh, we are just going pure Ahsoka novel right now, which I kind of, judging by the trailer and like seeing the Inquisitor there, I kind of had a gut feeling that's where we're going. But I'm like, oh my gosh. And we got people calling her Ashla, which is exactly what they call her in the novel. The girl that got saved by Ahsoka, like she ruled, right? Like keeping Ahsoka's secret for her, or I guess so they thought, right? Because then, her brother overheard it and he was obviously very like anti-Republic, anti-Jedi agenda, to the point where he got his entire village wiped out because of his actions. As cool as this Inquisitor looked, he sucked because he did not last long against Ahsoka. Ahsoka kicked his butt basically as fast as Obi-Wan took care of Maul in Rebels. Another thing that I would have liked to have seen adapted into this was like Ahsoka taking the crystals out of the Inquisitor saber and like forging them into her own. But again, I think I'm willing to, be like, okay, I'm going to give Dave the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we're going to get more stuff in the future. And in the end, Ahsoka calls help for Bail, and Ahsoka's ready to get back into the fight, which is kind of how the Ahsoka novel ends. So again, this was pretty much the Ahsoka novel in like 18 minutes or however long this episode was, but I absolutely loved it. I cannot stress enough how much this content means to me and how much I need more of it. This is the Star Wars content that I want more of, and I hope that Dave continues to make content like this. Like, I hope that they give Dave more freedom to do the stuff that he wants at Lucasfilm. And I also think as well that when it comes to every piece of Star Wars content that's coming out there, Dave needs to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And listen, I know Dave is only one person, but I feel like they're bringing a lot of people into the Star Wars realm right now that I don't want to say necessarily understand it, but at the same time, let's be honest, I feel like some of them don't. They're just kind of more focused on telling the stories that they want to tell instead of like stories that are good for the universe. When it comes to Clone Wars and Rebels, and I look at Tales of the Jedi and I put that in the same boat because it basically is Clone Wars. Like, that stuff to me is like head and shoulders above any of the other Star Wars TV shows that are out there right now. Like, it's not even close. Obviously, Mandalorian's really good. I'd give that an A rating. Book of Boba Fett was decent, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Obviously there was the one episode episode that Dave did, which ironically was really good. Kenobi was fine, but it could have been so much better. I haven't been a fan of Andor, so like I have been waiting for this type of content to return. So please, Dave, if you ever listen to this, I'm begging you, please do more of this. Ahsoka's my favorite Star Wars character. I selfishly want more on-screen stories with her. I want more Ashley Eckstein. I want more content of Ahsoka after Order 66, after Revenge of the Sith. Please, Dave, I'm begging you. You guys got to let me know what your thoughts of Tales of the Jedi are in the comments below. I think that's going to wrap us up for today, you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others to help support the channel, and I will see you guys next time.
Jedi. Ahsoka is Jedi.